We also learned more today about the FBI's secret files on Marilyn Monroe.
Welcome back to Stars Rewind. Marilyn Monroe, the silver screen star and beauty icon of Hollywood, is not only known for her alluring appearance and acting talent, but also for her life filled with tragedy. Behind the radiant smile on screen was a woman burdened by psychological pain and loneliness, which she carried until her final moments. Born into unfortunate circumstances, Marilyn's life was a journey full of ups and downs, from being a fatherless child to becoming a global superstar. But behind the glamour was a wounded soul, always yearning for love and understanding. Despite her beauty, talent, and fame, her life was engulfed in sorrow, ultimately ending in loneliness at the peak of her career. 62 years after her passing, Marilyn Monroe is still remembered as a cultural icon, not just in American cinema, but across the world. What really happened in her life? If you love Marilyn Monroe, make sure to watch until the end of this video so you don't miss any surprising or interesting stories about her life. A troubled childhood. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, experienced a childhood marked by instability and a lack of love. From birth, she never knew who her father was, and her mother, Gladys Monroe Mortensen, worked at a Hollywood film editing studio earning a meager wage. Marilyn's father had abandoned them before she was born, and the mother-daughter duo often lived in poverty, facing countless hardships. Amidst the pressures, Gladys fell into depression and was unable to properly care for Marilyn. She decided to place her daughter in foster care, visiting her only on weekends. A few years later, when Marilyn was hopeful to return to live with her mother, Gladys's mental health worsened. Eventually, Gladys had to spend the rest of her life in a mental institution. Afterward, Marilyn was taken in by her mother's close friend, Grace McKee. However, this marked the beginning of new tragedies for the actress. In the 7 years following her mother's institutionalization, Marilyn was shuffled between 10 different foster homes and spent a year in an orphanage before Grace McKee started her own family. While living with Grace, Marilyn was sexually assaulted twice. The first was by her neighbor, Kimmel. Kimmel was an amateur actor who rented a room at Grace's house and was respected and loved by Marilyn. However, the very actor she respected the most was the one who sexually abused her when she was only 8 years old. When Grace remarried, her husband, Irvin Silliman Goddard, also tried to molest Marilyn. She was then sent to live with Olive Brunings, where Marilyn was raped by one of Olive's sons at the age of 11. Despite all the emotional pain the actress endured in silence, it wasn't until she became famous that she revealed the trauma from her past. Explaining why she stayed quiet during those years, Marilyn wrote, "The world around me was so harsh, I had to learn to pretend I didn't know." Marriage seemed to be a crucial turning point in the Hollywood star's life, a way to fulfill the emotional gaps left from her childhood. However, each time Marilyn married, she faced another emotional breakdown. In 1942, at the age of 16, to escape her unstable life, Marilyn married her 21-year-old neighbor, James Dougherty. However, this marriage was not born out of love. It was merely a temporary solution to avoid returning to the orphanage, a way for Marilyn to find safety rather than happiness. To her, family life with Dougherty was just an extension of the aimless days she had experienced before, a dull reality she longed to escape. At 16, Marilyn was still a child, unable to take on the role of a devoted wife caring for her husband and building a family. She would often play with the neighborhood children until her husband called her back home. By late 1943, Dougherty joined the Merchant Marine and was deployed overseas in 1944. Marilyn Monroe was forced to drop out of school and took a job at a defense factory, earning $20 a week to support herself. It was there in 1945 that she caught the eye of photographer David Conover, who worked under then-actor and future U.S. President Ronald Reagan. At that time, Ronald Reagan was still active in the entertainment industry and just beginning his political career. Conover offered Marilyn a modeling job, paying her $5 per hour. These photos helped Marilyn catch the attention of Hollywood filmmakers, igniting her passion to pursue a career in the film industry. Her marriage also began to unravel as she pursued a modeling career. Eventually, the couple divorced after 4 years of marriage in September 1946. Career with Hollywood. In 1949, when Marilyn Monroe had yet to achieve fame, she faced severe financial difficulties. In this situation, she agreed to pose nude for photographer Tom Kelly to earn $50. For Monroe, this wasn't an easy decision, but she understood that it was the only way to alleviate the financial pressures weighing heavily on her life. At the time, with her name still relatively unknown, the photos didn't stir much public reaction. However, by 1953, when Monroe had begun to make her mark in the film industry, these photos were suddenly purchased by Hugh Hefner, the founder of Playboy magazine, and featured on the cover of its first issue. Hefner didn't seek Monroe's permission before publishing the images, creating a major public shock. The release of these photos caused a wave of controversy as the public was suddenly presented with Hollywood's rising star in a bold pose on an adult magazine. Instead of hiding or avoiding this scandal, Monroe chose to confront the truth head-on. She candidly admitted that she had posed for the photos because she needed the money. With this honesty, Monroe brought herself closer to the public, turning this crisis into a crucial turning point in her career. Her resilience and courage not only helped her overcome the scandal, but also allowed her career to flourish. The public saw not only a glamorous Monroe, but also a strong woman, unwilling to be defeated by hardship. However, the nude photo scandal laid the foundation for Monroe's image as a glamorous yet controversial figure in the years that followed. The public and the media began to shape Marilyn Monroe's persona, not only as a talented actress, but also as the beauty and sex symbol of the century. Despite the controversy surrounding the photos, they helped Monroe become a globally famous star, not just in Hollywood, but around the world. Monroe's style later became influenced by this scandal, as she constantly tried to prove herself beyond her glamorous appearance, emphasizing her acting talent. Although she was often labeled as the dumb blonde, Monroe was determined to change that image, continuously learning and training to secure deeper, more meaningful roles. Monroe wasn't defeated by the scandal. Instead, she used it as a way to break through stereotypes and establish herself in a highly competitive industry. These challenges didn't hold her back. Rather, they made Monroe a symbol of resilience and determination. When Marilyn Monroe first stepped into Hollywood, things didn't unfold like the fairy tale many imagine for big stars. In 1946, she signed a contract with Fox, and 2 years later she moved to Columbia. However, the early years of her career didn't bring any notable roles. Her contracts were canceled, acting opportunities were scarce, and she spent most of her time learning rather than appearing on screen. For many, these repeated failures would mark the end, but for Monroe, it was only the beginning of a fierce battle for success. It wasn't until the early 1950s that Marilyn Monroe truly had the opportunity to shine with films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire. These roles helped her solidify her name and quickly become a symbol of glamour. However, that fame did not come with respect. To Hollywood and the public, Monroe was just a dumb blonde, a limiting stereotype that film studios wanted her to maintain to attract audiences. Monroe didn't want to be confined to that mold. While she gained fame for her alluring looks, she knew that to have longevity in such a cutthroat industry, she needed more than that. This wasn't just a story about beauty. It was a battle to prove her talent. Monroe never stopped learning. She studied scripts on her own, took acting classes, and eventually attended the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg, known for its deep psychological approach to acting. This serious investment was not just about improving her acting skills. It was a defiant response to the dumb blonde label that studios had imposed on her. Monroe didn't want to be just a beauty symbol. She wanted to portray complex, darker aspects of characters, demanding roles that required emotional depth. But Hollywood wasn't quick to change its prejudices. In 1954, when Fox refused to increase her salary and continued to force her into shallow roles, Monroe made a revolutionary decision. She refused to renew her contract and went on strike, demanding more control over her career. This was a bold move, especially in the context of Hollywood at that time, where actresses rarely had a voice. Monroe even went on to establish her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, becoming only the second woman in cinematic history to do so. This action shocked not only the film studios, but also the public. The press at the time was filled with stories about Monroe's rebellion. Some criticized her as being overly ambitious and not knowing her place, but others began to respect her more, viewing her as a woman brave enough to stand up for herself. Monroe's relentless demand for more substantial roles and her refusal to remain boxed in the dumb blonde stereotype was part of a small revolution in cinema during that era. Films like Bus Stop, 1956, and The Misfits, 1961, revealed a completely different Marilyn Monroe, a talented actress capable of expressing deep and complex emotions. This not only marked Monroe's career growth, but also shifted how the public perceived her. However, this path was not an easy one. Although some of the media began to praise Monroe's acting abilities, many were still reluctant to accept this transformation. The public loved the cheerful, glamorous girl she had been known for, and many were not willing to let her break free from that mold. Monroe faced pushback not only from film producers, but also from her own fans. But she never backed down. Each role, each battle brought her closer to asserting her true worth. Personal life. Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio, a baseball legend, seemed to be the perfect American couple. When they married in 1954, the world was filled with hope that their love would overcome all obstacles. But the truth wasn't as glamorous as Hollywood or romantic headlines painted it. While DiMaggio initially fell for Monroe's sweet beauty and charm, that very allure quickly became a source of insecurity for him. The conflict erupted after the iconic subway grate scene from The 7-Year Itch. The moment where Monroe's white dress was blown up by the New York subway vent became one of the most sensual symbols in cinema, but it also marked the beginning of the end of their marriage. DiMaggio, unable to handle his jealousy and the public's attention on Monroe, became furious. That night, they had a violent argument, and just a few months later, their marriage ended after only 9 months. Their love was swallowed by insecurities, societal pressures, and the unrelenting spotlight on Monroe's public and personal life. Shortly after, Monroe entered into her third marriage, this time with renowned playwright Arthur Miller in 1956. Their union began with a shared passion for art and love. Monroe believed she had finally found a man who could see her true value beyond her beauty. But the romantic glow faded when she discovered the cruel reality in Miller's personal diary. The cold, detached words that expressed his disappointment in her shattered all the trust Monroe had placed in him. In one entry, Miller wrote, "I feel disappointed and ashamed of her. Perhaps Marilyn is not the woman I once thought she was." These unspoken words cut Monroe deeply, leaving her feeling powerless and heartbroken, driving her into a spiral of despair. Their love had now crumbled into irreparable fractures and distance. Monroe's health began to deteriorate as she struggled to carry a pregnancy to term. And with each miscarriage, her hope of becoming a mother shattered a little more. The disappointment, anguish, and pressure from both her marriage and career pushed her deeper into the abyss of loneliness and despair. Arthur Miller, who once symbolized her hope, now became a reminder of unfulfilled dreams and inescapable pain. Eventually, their marriage also broke apart, leaving behind a deeply wounded heart that nothing could heal. Moreover, among the biggest scandals in Marilyn Monroe's life None were more shocking or mysterious than her rumored affairs with two of the most powerful men in America, President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. The truth was never publicly confirmed, but the vague and unclear details surrounding these relationships made this story an inseparable part of Monroe's controversial legacy. Speculation about Monroe's relationship with President Kennedy exploded when she took the stage at Madison Square Garden on May 19, 1962. Wearing a skin-tight sequined gown, Monroe performed "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" at the event celebrating the president's 45th birthday. The stage lights illuminated her not only as a symbol of beauty and allure, but also as a veiled declaration of her connection to the most powerful man in America. But few understood that behind the smile and soft voice was a Marilyn Monroe grappling with immense pressure. For Monroe, appearing before the public was not just an event, but part of a complex life she had been drawn into. As a lonely woman in a world filled with power, Monroe was torn between her personal emotions and the political lives of the men she associated with. Her relationship with Kennedy not only brought excitement, but also entangled her in a web of secrets and deception. Rumors suggested that Monroe was not only involved with John F. Kennedy, but also with his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. Their meetings were held in secrecy at remote hotels or private gatherings, leaving Monroe to live in a cloud of uncertainty and anxiety. These brief yet suggestive encounters deepened her feelings of isolation. She became not only a symbol of outward beauty, but also trapped in relationships she couldn't control. These moments of connection were not a salvation, but rather a push deeper into her tumultuous life. Gradually, Monroe realized that her involvement with the Kennedy brothers was not the love she had hoped for. The fear that she was merely a pawn in a political game began to corrode her spirit. As things worsened, Monroe came to understand that she was caught in a labyrinth of secrets from which she could never escape. The sense of betrayal and isolation grew as she faced public rumors and media scrutiny. Not only did the secret meetings between Monroe and the Kennedy brothers exhaust her, but the public and media were also relentless. Every move Monroe made was scrutinized under the harsh spotlight of the press. Particularly after her "Happy Birthday" performance, rumors spread rapidly, turning the story of Monroe and Kennedy into a hot topic. The media began asking numerous questions, casting doubt on the truth behind this relationship. Every newspaper sought sensational headlines and evidence of the secret affair between her and the Kennedy brothers, making Monroe's personal life the focus of judgment and speculation. The public, too, was endlessly curious, divided into two opposing viewpoints. One side celebrated Monroe as an irresistible symbol of allure, while the other saw her as the cause of political and social turmoil. Fans who had once adored her began to question the image of the woman they once admired. The internal conflict between preserving her personal dignity and facing public criticism drove Monroe to lose control, leading to long, lonely, and stressful nights. The rumors about Monroe's relationship with the Kennedy brothers didn't end with tales of romance. Conspiracy theories blossomed after her mysterious death in 1962. Some believed that Monroe possessed critical political secrets, becoming a threat to the Kennedys' careers. There were whispers that Robert Kennedy had been at her home the night she died, and that Monroe may have been threatened or forced into silence forever. Though these conspiracy theories have never been proven, they continue to linger as part of Monroe's tragic narrative. Her death left behind countless unanswered questions, turning her life into an enduring mystery. Was she caught in a whirlwind of political secrets, or simply a victim of fame and pressure? The answer remains hidden somewhere in the shadows of those secret meetings, where the truth seems to have been buried. Health struggles and mysterious death. People often saw Marilyn Monroe's captivating beauty, but were largely unaware of the deep pain she endured, battling serious health issues throughout her life. From her early years, Monroe struggled with reproductive health problems, particularly endometriosis, a painful condition that made it impossible for her to carry a pregnancy to term. The heartbreak of not being able to fulfill her dream of motherhood left a profound emotional scar, further fueling her descent into depression and anxiety. Her psychological struggles were not just confined to personal pressures, but were exacerbated by the intense demands of the entertainment industry. To cope with the physical and mental pain, Monroe became increasingly reliant on sedatives and sleeping pills. Initially, these medications seemed to offer relief, helping her survive long, anxiety-filled nights. However, over time, her dependence on these drugs spiraled into a severe addiction. Monroe frequently arrived on set exhausted and disoriented, often incapable of functioning at full capacity. This not only caused significant delays in her films, but also led to mounting frustration among directors, producers, and co-stars. Her reputation for being difficult to work with quickly spread across Hollywood. Films like Some Like It Hot and The Misfits became notorious for Monroe's frequent tardiness or absences, leaving the entire cast and crew waiting for hours. Jack Lemmon, her co-star in Some Like It Hot, once revealed that it took Monroe over 37 takes to get a simple scene right, highlighting the extent of her struggles at the time. The lack of control over her drug use also led to numerous scandals in Marilyn Monroe's personal life. She gradually distanced herself from close relationships, becoming isolated and sinking deeper into mental turmoil. Her anxiety and feelings of isolation within her own world made drug abuse the only escape she felt she could rely on. However, her addiction not only destroyed her career, but ultimately marked the tragic end of this iconic figure's life. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead at her home in Brentwood, Los Angeles. Her death quickly became the focal point of conspiracy theories and speculation. The official report listed the cause of death as a barbiturate overdose, but from that moment on, the truth about her demise became a haunting mystery that has lingered in the public's mind for decades. Every detail surrounding Monroe's death remains clouded in ambiguity, from the presence of prescription pills in her bedroom to the conflicting testimonies of those present at the house that night. Eunice Murray, Monroe's housekeeper, was the first to discover her lifeless body on the bed. However, strange details, such as Murray's initial hesitation to call emergency services or reports of witnesses claiming to have seen Robert Kennedy at Monroe's home on that fateful night, have fueled various conspiracy theories. One of the most prominent conspiracy theories suggests that Monroe's death was linked to her relationship with the Kennedy brothers. Those who support this theory believe Monroe possessed sensitive political information about the Kennedy family, and her death may have been a cover-up to protect these secrets. Both John and Robert Kennedy were rumored to have had romantic affairs with Monroe, and this connection to powerful figures turned her death into something far more complex than a simple case of suicide. Others believe that Monroe may have been silenced to prevent her from revealing any sensitive information about her relationships with the Kennedy brothers. The unusual appearance of Robert Kennedy on the night of Monroe's death, though never officially confirmed, continues to fuel suspicions surrounding her demise. Was Monroe the victim of a political conspiracy, or simply the tragic star who could no longer bear the weight of fame? The conflicting testimonies of witnesses, the unclear details in the investigation, and the swift closure of the case as a suicide have only added to the complexity and mystery of Monroe's death. Some speculate that if she was indeed murdered, it was covered up meticulously, with all traces wiped clean. Even after her death, Monroe's image endures and has been widely exploited, especially in famous works like Andy Warhol's portrait series. She became a global icon, representing not only beauty, but also the profound complexity of the human soul. Marilyn Monroe's life was a portrait of contradictions, where the dazzling light of fame was always accompanied by the shadows of personal tragedy. With over 30 films, she became an irreplaceable figure in global cinema. But behind the scenes, she was a woman battling over 12 hospitalizations due to illness and mental health issues. Despite living only 36 years, the name Monroe has persisted for over 6 decades, etched in the public's memory not just for her beauty, but also for the mysteries left unsolved. The legendary moment when her white dress flew up in the 7-year itch in 1955 became an eternal symbol, an iconic image forever associated with Monroe's allure and boundless energy. The more than 50 conspiracy theories surrounding her death in 1962 have deepened the mystery of her short and tumultuous life. Although she passed away at 36, Marilyn Monroe lives on through Andy Warhol's portraits, on the big screen, and in the hearts of millions of fans worldwide. She remains not just a symbol of beauty, but Hollywood's most controversial star, leaving behind unanswered questions with her untimely death. Monroe was and will forever be an immortal legend in cinematic history. Share what you love most about Marilyn Monroe in the comments below to continue the conversation. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.